Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a guide on Ghost. We're going to be talking about her phasing, her abilities, when best to use her, how to use her, synergy teams, and so much more. So let's get started. So of course her biggest ability, and the one that we like the most, is her ability to phase. Basically she dashes back, and for 2 full seconds she will go into a phase mode where no basic attacks or special attacks except special 3 will be able to hit her within those 2 seconds. Even a special 3 you can get around with synergy, which we'll talk about later. So let's break down the phasing a little bit more. Phasing is probably a fighting style that is quite different from what you're used to with the blocking, intercepting, and parrying. Yes, of course you can still do those things with Ghost, but you really want to take advantage of how her dash works. So there's a few things you should be concerned about while you're phasing. Number 1 obviously is that 2-second timer. You really want to keep an eye on it, because if the opponent comes at you and the timer goes down just when you think that he's going to hit through you, he's actually going to hit you instead. Number 2 is when you hit the block, your phase will go down as well. Number 3, and probably the most important, is when you actually initiate an attack, your phase goes down. Now basically this is how it works. You phase, you let the opponent strike into you, and then you retaliate right after his attack. If you attack too early, if you attack too late, your phase will go down, and then he'll be able to strike you. So you really have to be careful on that. Lastly, after you phase, you have something called a precision buff, and basically you can't phase until you remove that precision buff, and we'll explain that here in a second on the next part. So let's slow the phasing down a bit. We're going to dash back here, and we're going to have a precision buff in the yellow circles you see here, and be phased. Captain Marvel comes at you and swings through you. You retaliate right away with a medium attack. A medium attack is very important because 1, it guarantees a critical attack, and 2, a critical attack will remove your precision buff, and you want that because when the precision buff is down, that means you can phase again. And you kind of rotate this process over and over again until you get to your special 1, special 2, where you can do the real big damage. So let's kind of see this again. I dash back, precision buff is up, Captain Marvel comes at me, swings through me, I retaliate right away with a medium attack, guarantees a critical, guarantees me to remove the precision buff, so it allows me to do my phase again, and I keep on rotating and rotating. Now things are going to be a little bit different when you have an Awakened Ghost, and we'll show that a little bit later in the Awakened section, but this is just to give you the basics on how she basically works with phasing. Now one last thing that you should be aware of is she can also phase through special 1 and special 2 attacks. As you can see right here, as long as you're within that 2-second window, you should be fine. We will have more phasing tips throughout the guide as we go to different sections. Right now we're going to talk about the controlling the critical hits and how she's pretty good against evaders. Ghost does not randomly get critical hits like other champs in the game. They're actually controlled by her precision buff. When the buff is up, her next attack is always a critical. If it's a medium attack, which is guaranteed a critical, it also removes the precision buff. And if she's dashing back and does a special right away, all the special attack hits will be critical as well. Now, just her regular attacks after that will all be basic. They're not critical at all, so it's very controlled. So let's take a look. So let's see an example of the critical hits in motion. First, we're going to show it in fast motion. There's the first critical hit. As you can see, no more critical hits after. Again, critical hit, no more after. So you slow it down. You dash back, he gets your precision buff. He swings at you, he misses. Your first hit is a critical, right there, you see in the yellow. And then your other attacks are just regular basic attacks. They will not be critical. Again, we dash back, we get a precision buff. That's when we can do a critical attack, and critical attacks cannot be evaded. We'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a critical attack, and then 4 basics. Now let's see how that works when you're doing a special. When you're doing your special 1 or 2, you want all your attacks to be critical, and you can do that by dashing back and using your special right away. I'm going to slow this down so you can see what I'm talking about. So right here, we're going to go and attack. We're going to dash back, and we're going to use our special right away. As you can see, the first crit, number 1, second crit coming up, number 2, and the third crit coming up here, number 3. That's where she does her best damage. Now we'll talk about some synergies to make this easier a little bit later, but for now, that's just to show you how it works. If you don't use your special fast enough after the dash back, you're not going to get a critical hit on all 3 hits. Now I'll show you this here in an example. We're just going to slow it down. So I'm coming here against Star-Lord. I get ready, I dash back, I use my special, but I'm a little too slow. The first hit is always critical, that's fine. But my next two won't be critical because I was too slow on doing my actual SP2 after the dash. You can see they're in the white. We will talk about the critical hits a little bit more when we get into the special attacks chat and the synergies. Right now I want to focus on how good she is against evaders. Obviously she has the phasing, which helps, but what really helps is her critical hits. Her critical hits cannot be evaded. So if you time it right, you can actually make the champ never evade, and you can use your specials and they can't be evaded as well. So let's take a look example of this. So the perfect example would be a Spider-Man in Act 5. He's debuff immune. That means he's also stun immune. So this is another good reason that Ghost is so good. I'm going to phase. He's going to swing into me. I'm going to get my precision buff. And I have my first attack, which is a critical, a medium attack. He can't evade those medium attacks. Then I'm going to keep on rotating this until I get to a special 2. And then finish him off with a critical hit special 2. Now this is a little bit over-exaggerated. I mean, typically in a fight you might be able to hit 2 or 3 times. You just really got to watch out for the evade. But this kind of shows that you can actually fight an evade champ and he won't be able to evade at all if you time it correctly. Yes, it's a little risky, a little dangerous. You got to be used to having the opponent punch you in the face. But it's all about timing and getting used to Ghost. We're getting up to our special 2. There it is. I have the Unblockable synergy, which we'll talk about later. All critical, and he's gone. Pretty cool ability. So the next few pros, we're going to kind of mix them together. They're often related to each other. So we're going to talk about the special attacks. We're going to talk about Awakening Ghost and her abilities. We're going to talk about is she good on duped, her synergies, her heavies, her suicide. We're kind of mixing them all together because they're often related. So let's get started. The special one is a 4-hit backflip. After you complete the special one, you get 3 precision charges. With those 3 precision charges, you can crit for those 3 hits, which is pretty nice. As you'll see coming up right here, I have the 3 charges up. I can do 3 critical hits. Now, the good thing about the special one is it's kind of cool that you get those 3 precision hits, but the bad thing is when you have the 3 precisions up, you are going to not be able to phase until you actually clear them. So you have to think about that. The special 2 is probably the biggest damage dealer out of her attacks, especially when you get the critical going with all 3 hits. It does give you a cruelty buff as well for 20 seconds after you complete it. As you can see here, it can do some incredible damage. That brings me on to the next point. As I mentioned before in the video, when you dash back and use your special attack right away, all the hits in your special will become critical. That's a pretty nice ability, and you want to be able to take advantage of that as much as possible. But it's not always so easy to do because you have to watch out for him blocking, or maybe he's coming at you too quickly and you just don't time it correctly. Now one thing you can do is bring in the Wasp synergy. When Wasp is on your team, all your special attacks become unblockable. So it's very easy to dash back and use your special right away on a special 2 or a special 1 because she has such a great reach and it's unblockable, so there's nothing they can do. So having Wasp on your team really takes Ghost to another level. Having the ability to have an unblockable special and be able to do your phase back and dash very quickly and do your special right away and always be guaranteed that you're going to crush the opponent with your special attack is just such a great bonus. That's why you see Wasp all the time with Ghost and War and events and so forth. Now the SP3 is pretty cool to watch, but you'll probably be focused on the SP1 and SP2 most of the time. What the SP3 will do is convert any cruelty buffs that are on you into permanent cruelty buffs, up to a stack of 5. So, you know, it's not too bad, but most of the time you're going to be focusing on your big damage dealer of your SP2. So we'll talk more about the synergies in a moment, but right now I want to talk about the abilities when Ghost is Awakened. She has 2 abilities. 1, she starts the fight in phase mode, and 2, when opponents strike through her phase, she gains power. I don't have a 6-star, a 5-star, or a 4-star duped, so I have to show you with my 3-star. And we're going to break it down here nice and slow. So, like I said, you start the fight in phase mode, which is great. The opponent will strike through my phase, and you'll see that the power is gained. It's not a lot of power, but if you let the opponent strike you multiple times through your phase, your power actually will increase faster. So opponents with the special attack that have multiple hits, for instance, your power will actually go up faster. But there is a price to this. Letting the opponent hit you 2 or 3 or 4 times can be more risky because you only have that 2-second window. when you're unduped, there's no sense of actually letting them hit you more than once through the phase. So you just got to be careful that if you want the rewards of the power gain, that you're going to have to be a little more skilled with the phase. So back to the synergies. As you already mentioned, Wasp is probably your best bet, giving you that unblockable special. Then you have a synergy with Antman that gives you a 15% attack bonus with every buff that's on you. Very nice. It's always nice to get that extra damage in with Ghost. And lastly, the one that we're going to showcase next is a synergy with Hood. With Hood, you have the ability to take no damage while phasing. That includes things like Regeneration from Dormammu or Limbo from Magic. Basically, when you're getting damage like Limbo, you just dash back and start your phase, and then Limbo will be cancelled. So it's a very nice bonus. But the really cool feature about the synergy with Hood is the ability to actually take an SP3 and not take any damage. So let's take a look at that. So with the Hood synergy, what you want to do is you want to be in phase mode when the SP3 is active. I'm going to see it come up here. I'm phased, he uses SP3, and I will be completely protected from this actual attack. Now it's a little more risky because opponents don't always just unleash their specials, but more aggressive ones are known to, like Hyperion, so it can really help you when you're in a jam. One thing we haven't mentioned yet is even without the Hood synergy, she still has the ability to cancel out bleed and poison by just going into her phase mode. This is very useful against poison or bleed nodes, or if she gets attacked and she gets hit by bleed or poison. And of course, it's amazing for suicides. As we know with suicides, you take bleed and poison damage, but at the beginning of the fight, she just dashes back, goes into phase mode, and that extra damage is completely gone. Speaking of the Suicide's Masteries, they are amazing for Ghost. Not only does she have the ability to protect herself from the bleed and poison negative effects, having that 60% attack bonus from full suicides, plus the special damage bonus from recoil, she will hit insanely hard. And if you're lucky, you can actually time it after a special attack. When you phase back, you can actually cancel out the recoil. It doesn't always happen, it doesn't always work, but it does work sometimes, and saving an extra 5% health is a real bonus. A few things I didn't mention, but I should probably talk about, which I didn't focus on in the actual video in the pro side of things, is one, she does get cruelty buffs. Cruelty buffs can go to a stack of 5. She has a 10% chance to get a cruelty buff from her basic attacks, not her critical attacks. And they increase your critical damage rating, which is always great for Ghost. The second thing is you can actually do heavy attacks as well. Heavy attacks give you a 50% chance to get a 10-second Fury, increasing your attack by 647, I believe. So the question is she still good unawakened, unduped? And I definitely think she is. When you look at her awakened abilities, the first one where she starts to fight in phase mode right away, that's nice, but when you're unduped, all you have to do is slide back, dash back, and you're in phase mode anyway, so that's not too much of a difference. The second part obviously is you get that extra power gain when the opponent attacks through your phase. That's a nice bonus, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. You can still be very, very effective with an unduped Ghost. Next, we're going to take a look at the cons. Not all of them are totally cons, but just to give you an idea of some of the more negative effects with her. The first one has to do with no synergies, not as effective. Now, I'm not saying that Ghost is not very powerful when she has no synergies. She still has great damage. She has the ability to phase and the ability to stop evaders. That's pretty nice. But when you add some certain synergies like Wasp or Hood or even Antman, she really becomes something special. That's why you see a lot in the Alliance Wars where people bring in their 5-star, 6-star Ghost and they have a 3-star Wasp tagging along with it. They know they can complete most of the content with Ghost if they have a really cool synergy team like a Wasp that can do unblockable attacks. So, not 100% necessary, just very effective having synergy teams with Ghost. So the next con we're going to take a look at is she has no regeneration, she has low block proficiency, she has low armor. She's a champ that's really meant to not get hit. Obviously you should be a master of your phasing, that's how you basically keep your health. And another thing is, if you happen to be running suicides, which many people do, you will take recoil damage sometimes. Sometimes you can actually pop out of it using your phase right away. But if you're moving from quest to quest and doing special attacks, you're going to lose some health. So a little bit negative there, but it really does balance well with her actual phase ability. So the next con, or maybe just a con to some, is she has a higher learning curve to actually learn how to use her. She's not like your typical champ where you can just basically go in and do your attacks and your special attacks and you can usually win the fight and everything's okay. We're so used to parrying and blocking and intercepting that having an opponent come at you and swing through you, it's quite different and it takes a while to get used to. Also, every opponent has different maneuvers, different movements. I found Dormammu, for instance, after I phase and he hits through me, I found it hard to actually retaliate on his attacks. He's got those quick little jabs. But then someone like Amazing Spider-Man has that long, exaggerated uppercut. I found that easy to phase. So you gotta kind of practice. All I can say is, you're gonna be frustrated at first when you first start using her. I was very frustrated. But once you get the timing and how she works, she just becomes an amazing champ, so don't give up on her. The next cons we're going to take a look at are Armor Break and Critical Resistance. There are actually two things that go against Ghost. Number one, Armor Break. If an opponent actually applies a Armor Break debuff on you, you will not be able to phase until that Armor Break is finished. Number two is Ghost really relies on her critical damage a lot. So if she's on a node where the opponent has critical resistance, or if she's against a character like Sinister, who's pretty new to the game, who actually has bonuses, he gets regeneration when you actually do critical damage, it's going to be harder for her to take them out. Without her critical hits, she's not as effective. And one con, which I didn't actually mention in the list, is the Alliance War Defense. If you put her on defense, she's actually not very good. You think that she would be amazing with her phase and so forth, but she's very easy to control when she's on defense. She's really just made for attacking. The only reason you'd really put her on defense is maybe for diversity, or if you're just hoping to get a lucky shot. Definitely not a great defender. Okay guys and gals, that's my little guide on Ghost. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If I missed anything, or if you'd like to leave some tips of your own, please do so in the comments. I'm always learning myself, and Ghost is a pretty new character to me as well. If you have any actual questions about the character, please leave them in the comments as well. Please like, dislike, share the video, and of course, more importantly, I would love for you to subscribe. So take care everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Target identified. Analysis complete. Please subscribe.